So I had 3 older sisters when I was a little kid, and my oldest sister, she moved out when she was 15. She eloped. And then not long after, my sister Debbie checked herself into a foster home. She was a wild one. Hitchhiked all the way to Florida on her own when she was 16. That was during that time when the dude was, there was a murderer killing women with long brown hair, and she had long brown hair. She didn't care. I know, right? She was the kind of person that would get in a fight at a bar and then she'd beat up the bouncers and they'd have to carry her out and drop her outside while she was pounding on them. She was a nut. Look at all these cars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, bother. Don't need to really worry so much when I have this bike. I can insert myself. Just had to be careful of the sand back there. And the gravel here. Then my sister Laurie, she moved out to go live with my father when she was 12. Meantime, my mother had married a guy from Haiti. His name was Pepe, and he had 2 kids from a previous marriage, and they came to live with us from Haiti. So I had a brother Kettler, I had a sister Ketna, and I had my little brother John that was the product of my mom and Pepe. And then my brother Mark, who you've seen on the videos here. He was a product of Mom and Pepe. And then we moved to Lynn from Somerville because he got a job. Pepe got a job working at GE in Lynn. So we moved there and we bought a triple-decker house. We were the first mixed-race family in the neighborhood. That did not go over very well. I remember the racism of the parents of my friends. And at the time, I didn't understand why they were treating me the way they were. And then later on, I realized, oh, it's because they saw that I had black people in my family. So we had a bad reputation for some stupid reason. And we had moved into a former Hells Angels member house. The first July after we moved in. We moved in October, so July comes the next year, and all of a sudden there's all these Hells Angels in the backyard. Ow. We had to go and tell them. My mother went out and she told them that, you know, that person had moved, and would you like some lemonade? And they thanked her, had some lemonade, and off they went. But we were regarded as suspicious people the entire time we lived there for 20 years, 25 years. Ridiculous. So I grew up in Lynn, and Lynn was the kind of place where everybody wanted to fight you. All the bullies and stuff, they wanted to fight you. And my father, of course, being an ex-Marine, an auxiliary police officer for Winthrop, Mass, and a part-time button man for the Mafia, taught me all kinds of stuff. He also he had his own karate school or something. He was teaching them all kinds of stuff. A couple of people he trained went to Vietnam. So he taught me stuff like, you know, if a kid bothers you, you follow him home for a few days and then find out his route, find a corner that he turns past and follow him to the point where right after he passes, you smack him in the head with a piece of wood or something, and you beat the crap out of him, and then you whisper in his ear while you're ripping his hair out, next time I'll kill you. And I'm like, I'm 7. I'm 7, Dad. I'm not going to do that. I'm 7. He grew up in a very, very violent time. He was a German-looking kid, even though he was English and Irish. He looked German in an Italian neighborhood in Somerville during World War II. And so all the Italians used to beat the crap out of him, and he had to learn how to fight with bricks and bottles and chains and whatever else you had on you. So his attitude was, if anybody bothers you, you know, find a brick or a rock and bash their face in. I mean, he was fierce. And the time that I grew up in was violent as well, but not nearly as violent as he had. And I just wasn't that way. I'm just not into that kind of thing. I would much rather play nice. You know, like, for example, a kid up the street we were friends with, actually his older brother was one of the founding members of the band Boston. This kid was a friend of mine. And I used to go over to his house. He was living with his grandmother, and they had this nice pool, and so we had a great time. They were kind of like rich, because, you know, the kid's brother was in the band Boston. And the grandmother had a poodle. So one day the kid had fallen in with a bad group. There were kids up the street from me who were kind of just not nice people. And one day after school, I'm walking home with a couple of my friends, and this kid with the bad group now, and they're egging him on to fight me for some reason. And so he comes up to fight me, and I said to him, what are you doing? We're friends. You're a pussy, this, that. And he starts to fight with me, and I used the stuff my dad taught me, you know, minimally. And, you know, I beat him very, very shortly. You know, it didn't take much. So all of his supposed friends walked off, and I walked the kid home. And when I got to his grandmother's house, I told him what happened. I apologized. I said I had to defend myself, and I made sure he was okay, and I left. Next day, I'm playing with my friends, and he comes up to me, and he looks all scared, and I put my hand out to shake his hand, and we shook hands and became friends again. And that kid thought I was the best dude ever the entire time I knew him, until the end of high school. So my whole thing was, you know, I wanted to be nice. I wanted to be a good person. I didn't want to injure people. I didn't want to be a sociopath. My father was kind of a sociopath. He really took joy in hurting people. Love him though I do. He used to speak of his many fights reverently about what he did to people. And there's a gentleman who comments on my videos once in a while. Apparently his dad knew my dad and said, yeah, all the stories are true. I know they're true because I witnessed some of it. Man, he was quick. He was the kind that could, you know, rip out eyeballs and bite off noses and break every bone in your body. I mean, oof. And there are people wearing concrete shoes because of him. I've already told the dad stories. Anyway, so how did my mother marry a guy from Haiti? Well, she answered the door on a Sunday, and this Jehovah's Witness was going door to door. My mother took a liking to him, and of course he wouldn't date her unless she joined, so she left Catholicism and became a Jehovah's Witness. Ended up marrying him. And so I was raised the first 10 years of my life in the Jehovah's Witnesses, with my dad visiting every weekend. And you can only imagine how my father would have taken the fact that my mother was now with a black person, and you know, there was racism back then. My father broke in the house one day when my mother was dating another guy who happened to be black, because my mother didn't care, black, white, Asian, whatever. If she fancied somebody, she didn't have any compunctions. So anyway,